find a way to fit. We forgot yesterday too. I knew it. I said, don't forget, I forgot. We'll try again next time. So it does give that valuable STEM experience and that hands-on learning. Very, very cross-curricular, which you'll see when we get into all of the curriculum. Okay, so the kit option, if you are a grant recipient, then you are receiving the medium bundle, which is on the VEX website. It says 20 students. That's assuming that you put 2 students per kit, so it comes with 10 kits. We got the feedback from the pilot teachers that you could easily do 2 to 3 students per kit. So the medium bundle is what you are receiving, and so you're going to get, if you have not yet, that's all everything you see in that picture is what you will receive, and it does accommodate 20 to 30 students. But if you ever needed to purchase additional equipment, you can go as cheap as $149. If you don't need the storage, if you don't want the kit, the actual boxes, then you can purchase it this way. The individual kits are $199, and then the bundles, I will give you a tip, they're free shipping. So if you've ever done anything through VEX, you know their shipping is an ungodly amount of money. I don't know what they're doing with it. I don't know. I don't understand it. There's some kind of undercover operation happening. I don't understand it, but it's unreal, the shipping. But little tip, if you order a VEX GO bundle, it's free shipping. Again, don't know why, but so if you know you're gonna need more, I know it costs more, but you'd be better off buying a bundle. And because honestly, the shipping is probably the difference between the one kit and the small bundle. So just something to keep in mind. So let's break down the contents of what you are receiving specifically. So the 10 VEX GO education kits. So you might be thinking, well, I have a lot more than 10 boxes. That's because every kit is 2 boxes. So every single individual kit has more of the building component, and then it has the wheels, the electronics, the connecting pieces, the sensors are in the other box. So you want to make sure that when you're giving a group a kit, you're giving them one of each box, and make sure you look closely to make sure they have both boxes. So you'll have 10 of those, so 2 boxes per kit, 24 field walls, so you can see in person you have those perimeters. And if you have done VEX IQ, you'll be happy to know these are so much easier than the VEX IQ ones that pop on and off very easily. You can reconfigure it however you want. You'll get 10 tiles, which you can also configure however you'd like. So some lessons will tell you like use 1 field tile. Some will say put 4 together to make like a runway. There's different configurations that you can make based on those field tiles. You can always purchase additional field tiles because if you wanted a bigger space, you could do that. You could pull them from your IQ equipment if you needed a bigger arena for whatever lesson you're doing. Then there's the 10 extra pin tools. So if you've not seen these, they are amazing. Everybody is loving them. They were designed for VEX GO, but IQ people are definitely purchasing them because they save your fingers. They keep your kiddos from putting pieces in their mouths. As long as you teach them properly how to use them, it does 3 different things. It pulls pins out. So you just put this over the pin, squeeze and pull out. It pries them apart here. So if you have 2 beams that are stuck together that you can't get apart, just put that in there and pry it apart. And then you have a poking tool, so it'll poke the pins out. Those little pins get stuck in there sometimes. And this, I don't know why it took so long to create this. I wish I would have thought of it. But this is a tremendous tool that you definitely want to make sure you keep on hand. So you have 10 of these, and then you have your carrying bags, which are so nice because if you have to travel between classrooms, it's much easier to store them. You have the carrying bags, and then the carrying bags for the field. And then 2 spare parts bins. So this is you'll see it, 2 of these in your equipment, and it just looks like this with like bags of pieces, because there's not always enough pins or enough pieces in the kits. So, and then not to mention kids lose them, right? So those pins go flying, they're all over the floor. So this is handy when you quickly need to grab some extra pins or extra beams or extra gears, whatever it may be. So you have 2 of those extra parts. You have 2 charging hubs, which this is brilliant as well. As a former STEM
Are the
teacher,
pins interchangeable with the VEX GO or the VEX IQ kits
Yes.
as well with the same pin?
the USB-C port, yeah, the exact same. As a former STEM teacher, I would have things charging all around my room. Every single outlet would be taken up. So the fact that you can use 1 outlet and charge 5 batteries is really nice. So you get 2 of these charging ports, so that you can essentially charge all 10 batteries on 1 outlet, which is very, very nice. So you have that in your kit. And then you have 2 parts posters. So these are handy as well. IQ, they make you print them now. So go, you still get the paper copy. But they're so nice to hang up in the room because they are almost to scale where they can kind of get a sense for every single part. If they have any questions, you can send them over, you know, on the terminology, the names, and they're like, I don't know where this part is. You can, rather than tell them, you can just make them go look for it themselves. Empower them. So there's 2 of those in your kit as well. Some other equipment that you'll want to take into consideration that you will likely need, student iPads. If your kids are not one-to-one, Google Chromebooks will work, but the best is student iPads. So the teacher mobile device. So I think every single teacher probably has a smartphone. That's all you need. You don't have to get a separate iPad. You can use an iPad that you have or your smartphone, but you'll want to, that's where you'll manage all of the devices. So that's where it'll be teacher only. The students don't access that app, but it's a way for you to monitor the battery life on all of your devices. You'll name them so you can keep track of where they're at in the room. You can select locate and it will light up so you can find it in the room. So it's a very handy tool that Ian will go over here in a little bit. And then different activities may require different consumables. So much like Project Lead the Way, which I should go back and say, when we were doing our pilot, we wanted to make sure that this was not overlapping with Project Lead the Way or stepping on their toes, because we love Project Lead the Way. One of our board members is one of the executives at Project Lead the Way. So we went to her and said, will you look at this and see, like, is this stepping on your toes? Does this, does this correlate with it, or does it overlap, or what is it? And she said it was wonderful. They loved it. So then she put me in contact with somebody else at Project Lead the Way, and together we created an alignment guide that shows all of the VEX GO activities, Project Lead the Way activities, and where they overlap. So that you can see, okay, I'm teaching this Project Lead the Way activity. Is there an activity that would also work with VEX GO? Can I extend this and also use VEX GO? Or can I do VEX GO instead of it, or the other way around? So together we did that, and I'll have a link for it for you here in a minute. That you can access. So if you also teach Project Lead the Way, you'll want to lean on that alignment guide, because it will kind of show you where the activities overlap. You will see similarities, but then you'll also see differences. So just know that it shouldn't feel like one more thing to you. It should feel like they go well together. You can use them together. And then so with that being said, the different consumables like construction paper, pipe cleaners, pom-poms, like markers, like you might see some activities where will require those things. And I'll show you the materials list and where you can find that and locate that and know what you need in advance. But they're all very standard types of things. So don't panic and think you have to spend a bunch of money on other materials. And then the controller is optional. So the iPads have 2 tabs. We'll go over here in a minute where you have a coding option and then you have like driving option, where they can really just use like a joystick on the touchpad to drive the robots once they're built. I don't know the specifics yet, but I heard from VEX that you'll now be able to use a VEX controller on the Go robots. I don't know if they're going to release a separate controller just for VEX GO, or if they're going to make a way for you to use existing IQ controllers, but be on the lookout. There's something coming out about that. So it's something to be aware of. So VEXrobotics.com is where it's going to be. You're going to want to bookmark it because you're going to go here a lot to get to the STEM labs. I have it linked here at the top, but I want to highlight this screenshot so you can kind of see what your home page is going to look like. Just like we showed you on that slide with the different levels of VEX, you're going to see that same thing across the title of that website. So the very first thing you're going to want to do is go to the one that says Go. So once you go to Go, everything that's on this page is going to change to be specific to VEX GO. So I'm going to go to this website. I can make it live, and then I'm going to select go. So you can see that now that I've selected go, everything on the page is now relevant to go. So it's now become kind of my hub for everything that I need in the classroom when I'm teaching the curriculum. So I'm just gonna kind of hover over these so I can give you a quick overview, and then a little bit later, we'll go into more detail about where everything is. And it does take some time to navigate. It took me a very long time. You get kind of, and Andy can allude to this, like, you get stuck in a loop of like, okay, where am I at on the website? I need to get my bearings of where I'm at. So it's gonna take time, just like any other new curriculum. Just give yourself some grace and some patience, because it will just take some time to get familiar with the way it's all laid out. But I'm just gonna hover over to a quick overview, and then we'll go into more detail about it. The products is gonna be where you're gonna purchase, so that's where we saw all the bundles, and then education. This is you're gonna go here a lot. Your education, and then down to the curriculum STEM labs. So this is going to be where you're gonna find every single lesson or every single activity that is related to VEX GO. Then I can hover over, I go over to competition. This is, there is a VEX GO competition. It is completely optional. There's no registration for it. There's nothing really to do there. So you can really just ignore that. The other one that's going to be relevant is downloads. So downloads is going to give you every single robot build instruction related to VEX GO. So the frog, the code base, the mechanical arm, every single thing is going to be right there in the Go build instructions. Now, there's also links to those instructions through the lesson. So when you get to the frog lesson and it says, okay, you're going to build the first phase of the frog, it's going to be hyperlinked so that you can get those build instructions. But if you ever need to just go directly to the build instructions, you can do that through the VEX Robotics website. But just a quick overview before we go into more detail with each of those. So those are the main things that you will need on the site. So the products. This also has the VEX Code programming platform, so it gives you a quick link to get straight to that. So 3 things that are important: products, education, and downloads. Education, STEM labs, and what you're going to use under that drop down. And then downloads, you're going to want to go robot build instructions. So those are going to be your important shortcuts on the VEX Robotics website. Go back. Okay, so I want to point out kind of how the build instructions are laid out. They're super easily accessible, like I just showed you. Here's a breakdown of it again, vexrobotics.com, switch to go to the downloads, go to Go build instructions. Every single step shows you the parts that you need. So in the top right corner, it's going to show the student, you want to find this piece right here. Once they find that piece, then it's going to show them a visual of where it belongs. And I love how it does like a zoom in. It says, okay, this check mark, it should go this direction. So anytime there is possibility that a chance that they could mess it up, they've really taken the time to point it out and say, make sure you turn it this way, otherwise it's going to be incorrect. And then the next part shows them what it should look like after it's put in. So it really does a good job of showing every single step. It does 1 step per page. It makes for a very long instruction manual, but for younger students, it's too much if there's too much on 1 page. It's just too much of a process. So it is 1 direction per page, and it will show them the before, and it will show them the after. And if there's a potential for a mistake, it will have an eyeball that says, make sure you do this. And it shows them that zoomed in image. And then if they're on their device, they can zoom in, zoom out to be able to see the piece a little bit closer. If you needed to print them, you absolutely could. If you have a student that would work better with the printed copy, I would just say put it in page protector so that you can reuse them or laminate them or something, because it is a lot to print at once. But if you wanted to have a paper copy on hand for students that needed that, that would be an option as well. I love, one of our pilot teachers shared this, and I don't know if maybe everybody knows this already. It was new for me, but I thought it was excellent. That when you're getting, when your students are building, remind them of the 4-step process for building and how to follow the 4 Ps. So nothing is more stressful than a young child who gets a product done and then realizes they made a mistake halfway back. And then there's tears, maybe from the teacher and the student, because they're having to rebuild and they're out of time. And it's just such a stressful moment. So whatever you can do to alleviate that, I have found that a lot of this has been very, we've gotten a lot of positive reactions from this. And I would, if I were the teacher, I think I would put this on a poster, put it in my classroom and say, okay, we're building. Very first thing you want to do is you want to ask yourself, which way does the piece face? Think about the position. What position should this be in? And it might be two pieces you have to think about. What position? And then what placement? So which holes do I use? Look at the pink lines, the pink circles. Which holes am I going to put this into? And then you're going to actually put the pieces together. You're going to push them together. And then lastly, you're going to ask yourself, okay, before I move on, is it perfect? Does this look exactly like the picture? If it doesn't, then I need to rethink it and fix it. I was actually using this yesterday. We're doing a training later today on building competition. So we were building the competition robots and I made a mistake. Like I was tired and I just made a mistake, but I was checking myself every step and thankfully I saw it in time where I could fix it before I got to the very end and how to rebuild it. So as an adult, if I was getting emotional, yeah, that's the time. So just think about that and consider using those 4 Ps when you're considering the building process. Okay, so we're gonna get started building. We're gonna dive right in and we're gonna build the frog. So like I mentioned before, the VEX GO STEM labs touch on so many different standards. And this one particularly goes over the life cycle of a frog. So it's in 2 labs where the first lab is in the first 2 stages of the frog's life. And then the students would return the second day and they would do the next 2 phases of the frog's life. So that is kind of how the lesson is laid out. We're going to jump right into the building. And then once our frog is built, then we're going to back up and look at the behind the scenes and see what that frog lesson looks like to get that in product. If you click on the frog right here, this will take you directly to build instructions. Or if you want to test yourself and see if you can navigate yourself there, then by all means do that. But you are welcome to use the shortcut in there as well. And let's just start with the first 2 phases for the sake of time. I think for the sake of time, let's do phase 1 and phase 2. So that would be through page
24.
24, thank you. Okay, so we're gonna do steps 1 through 24. Just for the sake of time, I think just halfway through the frog will give us enough. And as you're building, think about how you like the storage of the container. Think about how you like the process of the build instructions. Think about if you were your students, what kinds of things would you anticipate could be issues or problems or hiccups? Does anybody in person need a kit?
Mine didn't matter. This one should be fun.
Or you can just another. Okay. You guys need one down for you. Yeah. Yeah, if you don't have it, go out.
Yeah, what works together? Okay.
Need one word.
One more. Who else needed it?
So steps 1 through 24, the first 2 phases of the.
Graduate.
Did you just click the link on the slide?
I just went to the website and found it. We would go into downloads.
And downloads?
So when you click on downloads, you go to build instructions and it's like way down.
Okay. I went to education and looked at the lessons.
Downloads your friends. What was the cases? This is.
I would also encourage to test out the push pin tool while you're at it.
When you go to
Click down over
competition,
here.
You should be able to, if you go back to the presentation
No, that way.
and then just click on that.
There it goes. I was clicking over underneath
That's
it.
it.
when I go to competitions, I have like this like almost like a donation to put around mine, because kids will come up and just straight up take them. So you have to like put it on and be like, ah. Yep,
Like a
that's
little
mine.
strings or something.
But it's just, I'm like, that's a bought that with money that we raised, so like, put it in.
They're very.
You have to go by shape and size of the color. So
Oh my goodness.
this red and green seem different. That's not the problem.
Anybody thinking about your kids opening those little plastic cases and the pieces flying everywhere?
Have like a little,
It's gonna happen.
we put a plastic bin, and like, you have to put it in the bin, so when you open it up and it spills, it's like hot.
That's a good idea. It's the very first time I opened one. It's sort of everywhere. It always happens. And a couple suggestions I will give you as you're building, you'll see in the kit, there are magnets in there. I would remove those before you give the kids to the kids. The magnets, are only for a couple lessons and they're very distracting. So if I were you, I'd remove those magnets and put them somewhere where the kids can't access them. Also, I'll point out that the on top that has the motors and things, it can get a little tricky to get the lid shut. Those magnets, yes. The magnets are red and black. They're very strong and they're very entertaining. So the kids will grab them and then you'll have a hard, or they will take them from your room because they'll want to take them home. So I would suggest removing those. I would also suggest removing the motors and putting those maybe in a separate container because the cords get very messy and make it difficult to close the lids. So removing the motors and putting them in a separate storage would be helpful as well, and only bringing them out when you need them. So some builds are non-mechanical, some don't, like for example, the frog, it's non-mechanical, it doesn't involve any motors, it doesn't have a frame, doesn't have a battery. So if you know you're gonna have a build that doesn't involve those things, then you could just put those somewhere else so they're not distracting and then getting all messed up.
How do you do it? Build it. You stabilize that. That's my role.
Some of you already have a tap pole.
Also, quality control for it. Just to make sure you're doing it.
You can fix it.
No.
Kind of just stuck the leg in there.
Just like the directions are pretty easy to follow. And you see your students following the directions. As there's not a lot of reading, so that's why I say, I think sometimes even first graders. Some of the other activities, maybe not so much, but as far as the building goes, I think kindergarten, first grade can manage probably.
Kind of depends on the student.
I agree with that. Completely agree with that. You might be strategic in your grouping.
Would they be able to do it? Yes.
Well, they want you to build every step of the way. Yes.
Lots of tadpoles forming.
It's-
Can't just eyeball that one.
And that was a high one, that's really cool. That's a good bit.
Yes.
Once you get to page 24, you can stop. I think groups of 2 is probably best, because you can have, like this group is doing, where one is supplying them the equipment while the other is building. You can definitely make 3 work. I've seen teachers that just say like every step is, you just take turns, so we just go down the line, like you do a step, then you do a step, and you do a step, and just keep repeating that. So, that's why we say 2 to 3 students per group.
About how long do the activities take?
They say 40 minutes, so I say they say because when you start to get into the lessons, you'll see that realistically, I don't know that 40 minutes is. I think you could easily, most lessons could be split into 2 class periods. Thinking about time for cleanup and all of that, I think the majority of the lessons could be split into 2 class periods. It also depends on your 700 class period.
So ours are 50 minutes, so I'm thinking you probably have to do like 1 class at a time.
Yeah.
Also looking forward to it, whatever they're gonna have to code, have the other 3 sections working on code for level class builds, and then we come back to it, that's what I've already done, so.
Yeah, some teachers have done like the basic code base, so the basic part, they'll have 1 class build it, and they'll have the next grade level up code it. So that gives them, maximizes the time, because they don't have to worry about building it, it's already ready, they're just working on the programming side of it. So we've seen lots of different creative strategies when it comes to implementing. Those of you online, when you finish your tadpole, let us see how your tadpole looks.
Leg. What page of this stuff?
Like, this is my 3rd season, they've never
Stop
had
at
to take
page
code yet
24.
because
Yeah, you want
I've had issues with being
little overachiever.
Frankenstein's kind of mind to change the robot, so you can't code unless you physically have a finished robot, so. And we had one team that decided to, at the competition, completely dismantle the robot, even though you're not supposed to do that. And I assigned a mom next to the child, and she kept telling him, don't disassemble it, and he kept doing it, and she's like, that's it. You can't do robotics anymore. I'm like, well, this is a competition, honey. That's okay. I went to go get the pizza, and they came back, and the robot was in pieces. So now we have in our classroom, rules, we specifically have to sign up and say, do not touch the robot at competition once it's been tested. I mean,
Oh,
Yeah, I mean, it's. I mean, it has that little.
Oh, yeah.
Little check, and then it says, you know, so that's really, okay, so like.
No, no, it's going to go. Forget it. No, that's not fine.
Let's keep it more days than we're not here. And this year, we can, you know, I think our so much, you know, we raise some money. I said, yeah, we want to do more competition. Yeah. After South London. That's why I recognize you. I saw you in competition last year.
yeah.
You need what? You need to help you know that your school needs money.
Where are you for?
I was at, we went there and it was your first competition and my kids were with your kids and I were taking them around, so, but it was, because you were like, I don't know what I should do. You were doing, like, you were doing.
You know, it's fair. Like, you're still one.
Lawrence, it was your first one and you looked like, no.
Rated to. You did have your. Yes, they work that.
Nothing like your.
Yeah. Competition.
So like, you're the pizza person, you get the money, like, and you are the person who needs doing the cues. Like, this is what your job is to queue up this team, you queue up this team, go.
Yeah.
They're like, what? And it's like, this is so much.
Yeah, because that other one, the one you did is so. Other one. And you were on your own.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, they were like, hey, well, go ahead. And this, then we look up, we coming up, and we, you know, they were on our last call. And we was in the final.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, we would have missed that. We would have died.
Definitely learning.
Yes, it was. And then I did the volunteer at the state to get a sense of what a staff is.
Yeah.
So that was a good, good experience. Okay, I'm not figuring out.
I'll stop talking to you.
To- No.
Okay, we're gonna move on in just about
Okay.
3 minutes, even if you're not done building, that's okay. The whole point of the exercise is just to get a sense for the kit and the parts and the building instructions, the organization of everything, just so you get a sense for what your students will be experiencing. We'll move on in just a couple of minutes. I see, it looks like. I definitely see a frog on the Zoom call. Swimming across the screen.
All right. I guess, yeah, it's gonna have to do 2 legs, so
What'd you say?
it's never done enough legs to have to do 2 legs, so I just went ahead and.
Are we disassembling?
Yes, it's the same.
Yeah, eventually you'll have to just, you don't do it right this moment, but eventually we'll have to do it every time, especially if you have one of our kids. Something else while we're about to transition to think about is cleanup time. So everything is different. I visited some classrooms where the teacher literally doesn't care about how organized the kit is, and they're like a mess, like the cords are hanging out, everything's a mess, and they're okay with that. And if they're okay with that, then that's okay. Some teachers, they allow extra cleanup time because they want to make sure that every single piece goes back, that would have been me, goes back exactly where it belongs. That you can close the kit, everything is put back exactly the same. So just think about who you are as an educator and how you manage your classroom, and think about what kind of time you need to build into your schedule for the cleanup portion. Or if they have to take things apart, or if they're going to build the first 2 phases and then put that put that tadpole somewhere so they can continue it next time. Just kind of think through that process as well. So I want to give you an overview of every single lesson plan, they call it a lab. So when you hear me say STEM lab, it's referring to the lesson plan behind the activity. So we just built the first 2 phases of the frog, which would have been one full lab. Every single lab lesson is broken up into a teacher section and then the actual instruction. So the gray portion, the teacher prep, is going to be all the things that you need as an educator to prepare yourself to teach that lesson. So whether it's checking the standards, getting your materials together, overview, background information, all that kind of stuff is going to be in the teacher prep. And then the instruction is going to be the front facing, so the things that the students are experiencing. And every single STEM lab for VEX GO is broken into 3 sections, the engage, then the play, and then the share. So the engage is gonna be your hook, it's gonna be providing background information. It's designed to capture the student's attention and is generally a whole class activity. Then the play is, it's split into, that's broken out into 3 sections, into the part 1, the mid-play break, and the part 2. So keeping the kids engaged the entire time, keeping the 3 hands on. And then they are generally running some kind of an investigation, they're testing something and they're making predictions, they might be modifying things. And then lastly, the share. So that is the opportunity for the students to share what they learned, to discuss observations that were made during the activity. Now, I will say, like I was mentioning before, every single STEM lab is designed to take about 40 minutes. VEX suggests that is 1 class session. It's not necessarily realistic, in my opinion, just as someone who has been in that position, specifically if you teach a special area class where it's not your general ed classroom and you have them, let's say 45 minutes, and then they're moving on, and then your next group is at the door waiting for you. If you were in that position, which is what I was doing before I moved to this job, I will say that not all lessons are realistically going to take place in that 1 class period. Thinking about the fact that teachers sometimes drop off late, or you have issues with some classes take longer to clean up than others. So you really have to consider the time you need to build in for that cleanup time. So just take that into consideration when you are looking, when we were going through this overview, take that into consideration as well. I have noticed a pretty consistent theme that most of the 40-minute I can see split up into 2 class periods. So think about all of these lessons could be broken up into 2 class periods. But I also would kind of teach you, like, I didn't want to rush things. So just think about that. There's a lot of modifications that you can make on it. So I'm going to use this link down here to look at the behind the scenes of Fun Frogs. So we just did lab 1 of Fun Frogs, the building portion of it. So this is what it looks like behind the scenes. So this is the teacher portal. This is where you're going to access everything. In a moment, we will practice accessing and showing you where to find this. But basically, all I had to do was go to VEX GO and then go to STEM education, STEM labs, and then Fun Frogs. So it shows you that Fun Frog has 2 labs, which is 2 class periods. And it tells me that during these labs, we're going to investigate the different phases of the frog life cycle. So you can see a classroom teacher, I forget what standard this is. I want to say it's in 1st grade, 2nd grade, maybe. The life cycle or habitat, animal habitat, something like that. But you could either, the classroom teacher could use this, or if you are a special areas teacher, you could work with the classroom teacher to say, hey, I can help you teach that standard in my class. So when your students are with me, I can kind of lay the foundation or get them excited about it by doing this activity with them. So think about how you can collaborate with the classroom teachers if you are a STEM teacher. And if you are a STEM teacher, think about how you can collaborate with other way around. If you're a classroom teacher, think about how you can collaborate with a STEM teacher to be on the same page and be more efficient. See, the classroom teachers are having a very hard time reaching those science standards. And so this is a way that they can get that in that STEM class as well. So you have got, there's a lot here. This is what I was referencing, how you can kind of get lost within the content, because these are all hyperlinks. So you've got, rather than click on all of them, I'm going to use some brief overviews. You've got your unit overview. You can open it or you can print it. And then that's going to give you a summary of everything for that entire unit. Then you have, there's like best practices. I don't worry about that. You can print a student certificate. So if this is a activity that you feel like would motivate the students if they had a certificate, you can print a student certificate for that. If you scroll down, you can see that it breaks it down to the 2 labs. It gives an overview. In lab 1, you're going to create a habitat and begin your field journal as you build the first 2 pages of the tadpole. Then in lab 2, you're going to create the frog field journal by drawing and observing your frog in its natural habitat. So then you can break it down and go to either one of those. So I'm going to go back up. I'm going to open the unit overview. And again, there's tons of content here. So it's a little excessive and a little bit overwhelming. So again, don't get overwhelmed. But it has here that the 40 minutes per lab, it has your essential questions, it has your unit understandings, it has your summary. It has your standards, so it'll have next generation standards. Next generation science standards, and then it will also have a Common Core. So I understand with Indiana, that's not gonna be that relevant for you, but I know as Indiana educators, we're used to having Common Core standards and having to convert that. So it's going to have, and I have asked VEX to add Indiana. They have Texas right now because VEX is based out of Texas. So they do have Texas standards, so I've been asking, why don't you put in Indiana? We have more teams than anybody else. Our robotics is huge here, so they are considering it, but for now. Thankfully, we have switched to the NGSS, so that helps a lot. But then the English, the language arts, the math, those are gonna be Common Core. Then they also have Texas, which doesn't help us. So those are the standards that you're gonna see on each of the lessons. And if you just keep clicking next at the bottom, it's gonna take you through, you can see how now I'm in the background. I was in the overview, now in the background. It's gonna talk about what is the habitat, what is the frog life cycle. You may not need any of this information. If you wanted to pull any of this to use with your students, you could, but it's gonna go over every single thing. It's gonna show you all the pieces that they're gonna need. Goes over all of that. So by keep hitting next down in spatial reasoning. Again, a lot of information that you can choose to read or not read. Applying VEX GO. There's a pacing guide. Let's get this a little faster. So you can kind of see how it's broken down as far as each section. So it's showing the engaged section is going to take you about 20 minutes. The play is going to take you about 20 minutes. And then the optional shares 3-5. So you can see that what they're anticipating is the max 40 minutes. So if you're considering the entry, the get them situated, the cleanup time, then that's really not gonna be realistic for one class period unless you have a longer class period. This is really cool to have a choice board. So every single unit, this is all for fun frogs. Everything you're seeing is just for fun frogs. And every single unit has all of these resources. So the choice board, if you have students that finish early, so let's say you're gonna split that into 2 class periods, but then that means you have extra time at the end of your second class period. You have this choice board that is all centered around fun frogs. So you've got, it has writing components, it has science components, it has research components. So there's other things that you can do, whether they finish early or they need something a little more challenging. So there's so much content here. There's vocabulary. Is word walls, are those still a thing? They are, okay, well, here's your word wall. You got all your vocabulary to add to your word wall. So that could be even a part of your lesson as well. It's not in the lesson content, but it very well could be. And then you have a letter home. So if you wanted your parents to understand what was happening in your class, you can send this, and then they have an editable letter home. So that's what handy as well. So I'm going to return to the labs. So I was just in the open unit overview. And then I'm just going to look at lab 1. So this is what we just built. So I'm going to click on that. And then this is what I was showing you that last visual where you have the goals and standards in the summary is you're going to be your teacher side. And then your engage, play, and share is going to be your student side. So the student facing. So these first 2 are going to be teacher prep. And then these last 3 are going to be student focused. Your actual instruction. So I'm going to skip through so you can kind of see the summary is really helpful because it shows you right away all the materials that you're going to need for this lesson. So you can make sure you have all this prepped ahead of time. The blue ones that are hyperlinked, everything goes to a Google Doc. So whether it's a Google Sheet, a Google Doc, or Google presentation, which is so handy, it's all open source, which means you can make a copy of it and make it your own. You can edit it to be whatever you want it to be. So I really love that feature where, for example, lab 1 image slideshow. When I open this, I'm going to need this when I teach that first lesson. And I have all these images, but maybe I want to add a video that shows a demonstration of how a life cycle of a frog. Then I can just make a copy of this slideshow, and then I can add a video in wherever I want to add it. So it makes it really easy to make it unique for you and edit it to make it work for your students. So you've got all the slideshows, all the things that you'll need to present this to your students. So you have these visuals that are real life visuals, so whether they're making a robotic frog, right? But you don't want them to lose connection of what an actual frog is and what kind of life they have, so. That is there. You can set the foundation of roles and routines. There is the field journal page here. Which you can just use graph paper, you don't have to use this one, but it's basically. A design notebook where they're reflecting or brainstorming. If you needed them to actually turn something in, you can print this, edit it, and then print it, and copies of it, whatever you want to do with it. You don't have to use it at all. And then I also want to point out the Get Ready, Get VEX Go PDF book. Every single lesson throughout VEX Go has a link to this picture book, which you could absolutely print and bind it and make it a book in your classroom. But it's basically the book that's used to introduce VEX Go to your students. So I would recommend day one that you're using VEX Go, use their intro to building is the activity is called. It's an amazing way to introduce the equipment to your students in a fun and engaging way. So I would recommend the very first thing you do with your students would be intro to building. And that takes you through this entire picture book and introduces the students to Joe, which if you didn't know, Joe is actually in your box. He is hiding, tucked away where the pen tool is. He's in pieces right now. So he is inside your kit. And you introduce Joe, and then Joe will then guide them through things about their robot kit, explain different ways they might use it. And then you can see here, it shows the actual kit in more of a cartoon form, so they can kind of see that it matches what they have in front of them. It teaches them how to use the push pin tool. So a little bit more engaging than you just thinking they're telling you by guiding right now, just telling you what to do. A little bit more engaging than that. And then it introduces Josh, and they're gonna build Josh. So this is gonna be their first official build. It's very small, very short, very fast, but it gives them the first exposure to how those pieces are gonna go together. This is Joe's special helper, and then it has the actual directions. It has to get those pieces out and make Josh. So this is what I would say is great starting point is just to do intro to building and take them through this book. And every single lesson, this is why it's good to use at the very beginning, because every lesson moving forward, including the frog lesson, refers to Get Ready, Get VEX Go. And you can always go back to it, you can reference it. Remember when Joe taught us about this, or remember when we built Josh, things like that. So that is always there. And then it's going to give an overview of what the lesson is going to look like. And then next, this is when you get into, now we're in the engage. So this is the front facing, this is what you're delivering to your students. This is how you are instructing them. Every single lesson has an ask and an asks, where it's write the question. So you'll actually do that, let me know about the life of the frog on the board. And then you ask them, let's think about frogs. I think you've never seen one in your life. What did you notice about it? So this is that whole classroom instruction, that hook where you're engaging in background information, getting them started on the lesson. Then you're gonna start instructing them. So if you notice, these were in that slideshow. So you would project it onto the screen and show them the frog in their habitat. And then put the samples. And then they're going to use the VEX Go materials and classroom craft materials to build a habitat for a frog. So there's one of your field tiles that comes into play, some extra materials, and even the building, you can see that they use pieces from the pit to make the habitat, to make the trees, to make the lens, things like that. And then you're gonna actually facilitate that instruction. I realize I'm going a little fast, so I apologize, but sake of time. And then you're gonna instruct them to get the build instructions and to build their tadpole. Then you got your mid-play break and group discussion, which you could easily eliminate for the sake of time. So there's definitely things in here that you could take out if you needed to. I would say there's an excessive amount of material here, and you can sort through and decide what you want to remove to make it work within your class period. So. See. And then lastly, you have your shared. I was in a classroom, it was kind of cool, they stopped a few minutes early. They were keeping their robots together, and so when their teacher came to pick them up, she asked the teacher to come like 3 minutes early. And I know that's a little bit of a stretch sometimes, but you know, your teachers that will agree to that. Came up 3 minutes early, and then each group just quickly shared what they had created. And you could see like the joy and the excitement, how proud the kids were to show their classroom teacher what they had done. So if you ever find a time opportunity to build that in, if you have a principal that's stopping by, the kids love to show what they built. So if you can put that in, but don't feel like you always have to. It doesn't have to happen every single time. Okay, so that is the overview of the lesson. Now. I'm gonna pause there for just a second. Are there any questions on how the lessons are set up? We can practice accessing them and finding them, because that, like I said, it can get a little overwhelming, all the content, but. Everybody will be online. Everybody good there? Yeah.
I have a question on the kids, that you
Yeah.
said that we got a medium kid, and that's for, you said 20 kids, but that's if we put them
Two
two, 3.
Yeah, 30 would be 3 per kid.
Okay.
I figure most class sizes are generally 20. I don't know anymore, but probably somewhere up to 30. But then some of your younger grades might be 24, 25. So with a medium sized kid, 2 to 3 students, so some might have 2, some might have 3 on each of them. But then you might also notice that because of the way your class is set up, you might need an additional set to be able to do VEX GO with more than one grade level or more than one class at a time, especially if you want to build on something. You don't want them to take it apart. Now, VEX will tell you that you could take everything apart and rebuild it in the next class session. I don't agree with that necessarily. I don't think that's realistic, but they would tell you, rather than buy a whole new set, just have them take it apart, and then when they come back to the next class period, have them rebuild it and start where they left off. Because they'll be able to build it faster because they've already built it once. I don't agree with that. I'm not gonna tell you that's realistic, because I don't believe it is. So in some cases, you might have to look for additional funding to get additional sets. And once you show your principal that it's working so well, and the kids are loving it, and you're touching on all these standards, and they're engaged, you might be able to convince them to put additional funding in to get additional class sets so that you can do it with more than one class at a time. And some lessons can be done in one class period, done, move on to the next. And you'll get a feel for that as far as what works. I know I used to, when I had limited equipment, I would do like only 5th graders would do this. And then, and maybe it was only half the 5th graders. And once they were, then I had the other half doing something else that was comparable. And then when they finished, I would just swap them and say, okay, now you're doing little bits and you're doing VEX GO. Like I would just kind of swap them like that. So you have to get creative when it comes to equipment. And if you never need me to help you walk through that, I'd be happy to. Because I've been in those shoes, and I understand like that challenge of trying to rotate equipment between different class periods when you see the whole building. So I can help you get creative with that, but you can also, there's some really great material on this, within the teacher portal of like why VEX GO, why is it important, why is it impacting students, why, and a lot of that wording that you can copy and paste and send in an email to your principal. Especially after you've used it for maybe 9 weeks and you're like, okay, this is really working great and I need more. There's tons of funding out now for STEM instruction that a lot of times principals are looking for opportunities of things, ways to spend money for STEM specifically. So don't shy away from asking for money. I think you might be surprised sometimes on what is actually out there. Here is like a bird's eye view of the entire teacher portal, because I do know it can be overwhelming at times. What we just did was we walked through the teacher resources. So under the teacher portal, you have the teacher resources, and you have the getting started, the picture book that I showed you, the implementation guide, the why VEX GO. That's where you want to get the wording for your principal if you're trying to, or superintendent or whomever that you're trying to convince. You have your content standard, you have your materials list, you have your build instructions, all of that is right there. And then, PD plus it's an extra fee. I still don't understand why you wanna pay $1,000 to access that. I've yet to understand that, but, it is there if you wanna purchase it. Apparently there's access to like tons of videos and instructional tools. After spending tons of time on VEX GO, I don't feel a need to purchase that, but, just know it's there if you want it. Go activities are like the one-off activities that where everything else is like a unit, so 2 to 5 or 6 lessons. The activities are more like, they'd be great like back to school, you know, like the marshmallow and spaghetti challenge, the tower challenge. There's there's some design challenges that you can use with the VEX GO kits. There's lots of different, and we'll look at those a little bit too, but then, and then lastly, the pacing guide, which is both cumulative and one-to-one. I'm gonna go to this link so I can show you. A little quick thing. So here's your teacher portal. If you, before I put on anything, if you just scroll down, this will lead you straight to the lesson library. So the frog lesson that we just did is here. The intro to building lesson that I was telling you about is right here. And you can filter this by the subject, by the type, or by the level. So the ones that are more challenging or less challenging. If you know that you need to teach coding specifically, then just filter it by coding. And then you're going to see only coding lessons. And you'll see that this is 2 labs, so it's estimating 8 minutes. We're going to continue to scroll down, you'll see this one is 4 labs total. And so I can find an activity. This one, 3 labs. Okay, so this one you can see has 3 activities, which basically means these are 3 separate activities. They don't necessarily build on each other. They're 3 independent activities, where 3 labs is going to be like a unit. So that's the difference between labs and activities. So these are all, and I think they're continuing to add additional lessons, so you might start to see new ones pop up. This is still fairly new, so I think we'll continue to see an expansion of those things.
I'm sorry, could you say the difference? I was looking at the thing you're going, what's the difference between a lab and
That's okay.
activity?
And a lab is like a unit, so it will build on the previous lesson.
Okay.
Where the activities is more like a one-off. There might be an activity series, so they might have like the same similar theme, but they can be done like theoretically in one class session, and they don't build on each other. There's a lot more labs than there are activities. There's only like a handful of activities. But those activities are good, like I mentioned, like back to school, things like that. Like you're thinking like a day you're just trying to do like one day you need to fill up or something. Yeah.
I was just gonna say, so teachers with IPS, you guys will have fish kits because I purchased them through PLCW.
Yay. So there will be extra kits.
You won't have just the 10.
Awesome. Great news for IPS teachers. That's awesome. I'm gonna quickly click on a couple of these resources so you can see. This cumulative pacing guide is really handy because it has every single activity and they're hyperlinked to that activity. It tells you whether or not they're building, and if they are building, what are they building? It gives you the primary subject, the secondary subject, the concepts, a brief description, whether or not there's coding involved, and whether is it level 1 or level 2. So level 1 being more beginner, level 2 being more they have experience and they're ready to press a little more challenge. And then I also want to show you the one-to-one pacing guide. Because this one incorporates this has a going from beginner to more advanced. And then it has your unit labs, then it also has activities listed. And then it shows you the common concepts and work there. So that is handy. And then we'll go back to the presentation. And we're gonna build the robot now. So you guys can see how the coding is incorporated. And so we're gonna build the basic robots. And then we will power it on, connect it to a device. and then see how the coding is incorporated. So I want to see if you guys can find this activity. You're gonna go to the VEX Robotics website. And then you're gonna switch to Go. There's also a link there if you don't feel like trying to find it. But it might not be a bad idea to challenge yourself to find it. So VEX Robotics, switch to Go at the top. Then you go down to, right now, education, you thinking? And allow that to drop down. It's better if you let it drop down and click on it. Drop down to what? Labs, STEM labs. And then once you're in the teacher portal, you can scroll down to see all of the units. You can find, and then find robot jobs. You could filter it by engineering, probably coding, you'd find it that way too. Or you might be able to just search for it. There's also a link where it says robot jobs, so if you're not in the mood to find it, then just click on the link to get there faster. But you also need some practice finding them. And then once you go there, we're gonna get the build instructions. So we're gonna go to lab 1. This is a really fun lab. It's all about robots and how they replace humans, and it's interesting because your older students are probably gonna be very passionate about this topic, because a lot of the older ones will say, robots aren't good to replace humans, and then humans lose jobs, and you'll be surprised at how many of them will have a real opinion about this. But this is all about how robots replace humans to do jobs that are dangerous, dirty, and dull. And so it gives them a whole new perspective on the value of robots and how they can do jobs that humans don't want to do, or that are too dangerous for humans, or too boring for humans, like cleaning pools or searching the bottom of the ocean, or things like that. So it's a really great lesson, I would say, for older students in your building. But we're gonna go to lab 1. And if you go to the summary, then that will take you straight to the code-based build instructions. So we're gonna try to get to the code-based build instructions. So code-based build instructions, and then we're gonna go ahead and build. If you're in person, you need to do a quick break. This would be a great time for you to use the restroom or grab a snack or water. But we're going to try to build this as quickly as possible, so that we can start coding and seeing how that's connected.
There's the restroom.
Through that green building right there. So you're gonna pass the kitchen, and then both hallways have restrooms. Need help getting to the instructions, please let us know online or in person. Yeah, we got it.
You guys have project everywhere in your district?
We do. We do. We've got technology in all the elementary schools, and we meet usually once a month and go over and kind of make our own curriculum, and we kind of decide what we're all doing with our technology, which is really nice. And we've got a great foundation in Washington, so a lot of times they'll match donors choose and everything, so a lot of things get funded. And it's really nice kind of having the freedom.
Yeah. The district's kind of, I'm a teacher librarian, but also, also Dan and I rank up into anything they have me do, so I did, project with race and lead that was so we are going to do project with race, we just haven't done it yet in the buildings, and so teachers, but we just went through a new curriculum last year, and if I even recommend it to teachers, they might have scratched their eyes out, so
I'm gonna go get another. You want one?
I just looked at project based, so
Liquid management.
There was, motor.
I see it now. There's a weekend with us.
But my tech is supposed to be there, but he was gone for 7 weeks last year. And I was looking for him like all the time, which was okay. And then there was also the STEM teacher too, so. It's just, whatever. I might not have a job this year. Get the referendums and pass.
If they pass or if they don't.
They
pass.
just pass. But,
When's that?
November 7th.
And the color is different.
But they just sent it out. It's actually going to be cheaper. 20% cheaper than the last referendum that was accepted like 8 years ago. And the first referendum I was ever part of back in 2007, that was during a recession and it was passed. So
Yes.
I feel like
It's a good results.
That's a color too.
because our office there,
All red, yeah.
a lot of other, like, they would have to cut the budget and then class size would go up exponentially, and they would cut like all the research people, and it would be kind of, it could be passed. So
Did you find a short time? Or was this the list?
the short ones in here.
There it is.
Wow.
But I teach writing. I'm really big into science. I do love science, so basically like what they want me to be. Which is okay. It used to be in the rotation. I kind of missed that because it was more like very scheduled. No, it's not that way.
Sorry. Building mountain supplies guy. Hi. Yes, doing supplies, we look in the building.
What's your background in super technology, John?
Well, when I graduated college, I was a engineering technology major and worked with sales jobs around town and then started social media marketing and website design. And then we got bought out by a bigger firm.
Right.
One of our clients, and went back to school, get my master's in education, worked in the classroom for 7 or 8 years, and then my kids are in Washington Township, and I went to Washington Township school, so to be on the same calendar. And everything was nice, the job was enough, and I kind of moved mid-year from the Pike, but worked out, it's been great, I've loved it.
I got my degree in library science, and then I was a major researcher writing grants for people, and then I decided that I had summers off, once I started having kids, so then I got a job that I just,
Yeah.
and,
It's gonna take a while.
it's a great training still, and also a Wilson train, tutor and relationship, you know, like where I have this life experience, so. This would be my ninth.
Grant writing, probably makes you popular with your principal.
I get a lot of grants. I think over the, I think I've gotten over 50,000.
Oh, that's great. It's funny, the job I have now, that's kind of a load at night. The woman who kind of before me did a bunch of grants and 3D printers and steer box and all of a sudden. My wife's on the National Township Foundation and approved all of those grants. And then when I got this job, I was like, hey, you remember those things? Approved. They're mine now.
Uh-huh. Leave that in the room.
Yeah.
I have one.
I just are not forward on that.
We'll trust you.
I think there's just one reason remaining.
Yeah, I noticed that when I, was doing the pairing yesterday, there was like, sort of like Lindsay and like Pecan.
Yeah, just don't shower it on once you're done, but here's your break.
I got pass enough.
I think,
Is that all?
does anybody else, oh, so like. I just make sure I got a brain pad in my room, so things it does.
Definitely make sure you don't turn the brains on just quite yet.
Okay. I'm gonna just pick this up. Two. I like it, I had a good part.
Yeah.
In there. I was trying to see if. Maybe like 2 to 3 minutes. If you are done, then you can make sure if you can grab your smartphone or an iPad. To make sure you have the VEX Go Classroom app downloaded. It was in the email to make sure you had it downloaded. Hopefully you do. If not, we can just show you how it works. The VEX Go Classroom app. So it's teachers only, not for students. You do not need it on student device.
It's gonna be gray, there's like 2 VEX Go, one's gonna be the coding and one will be the teacher. The coding one is like kind of like a teal-ish, I don't know colors, I think it's teal, yeah, teal. And this one's gray, so you'll definitely want to try this one, but if you have both for today, that'd be. You guys liking it so far? So you see yourselves implementing it in your classrooms? Think the kids will figure it out? Yes.
For everybody, right?
Yeah.
Like anything else that's new.
It's the gray one.
Yes.
Hopefully I have enough storage on my phone.
I would say you probably go ahead and explain the app while they're finishing building for the sake of time, and then you can start connecting.
All right, so we did the frog, which was non-robot related, but which hopefully is obvious by now. We'll move into the robot part, which might be a little bit of a bigger portion of what VEX GO is. So with that said, you'll need a little bit of technology. So you'll need to have the classroom app, and then for your students, once you start utilizing the more robotics portion of VEX GO, they'll need either iPads or laptops. We'll talk about that in a second. Most important thing that you have is the classroom app. For classrooms that are going to use iPads to use the robots, you want to make sure that your kids do not have access to this, because this is going to kind of be your hub for everything robot related. From the app, you're going to be able to rename robots, update them, kind of manage them in like a singular setting, to be able to see what batteries are low, locate the brains, update the brains, all that stuff. So you don't want your kids to have access to be able to update their brains to whatever is funny to a third grader these days. So you'll want to make sure that you have this app and nobody else has this app. You have to have it on a phone. I think you can have it on an iPad as well, but definitely not an iPad that you're going to give out to kids, but you're going to want to have this. And so with that said, when it comes to updating the brains, and this is why we told you not to all turn them on at once, is because once you get onto the app, like I said, you see all of the brains, all of the names. And if we all turn them on all at once, they're all named different things, and you're not going to know which robot is communicating.
They're actually all named VEX GO, so you have no idea which VEX GO is yours and which one is your neighbor's.
Somebody else's, yeah. So one thing that we suggest is once you have brains and you're in your classroom, you're getting these all set up, you label them physically on each robot. So you can kind of see from this example that you've got robot 1, robot 2, robot 3, and then you go ahead and physically name it on the robot. It's going to make it that much more easier to locate them, to figure out which one's not working. If there's one piece of advice you take from today, it's labeling your brains. Any questions on the teacher app? What's the one thing that you're gonna do?
Label the way.
Label brains. No, sorry, in a second. Do you want to do that? We'll. Do you want to go down the table? I can keep talking if you want to.
Yeah.
Each one of them. So again, we're gonna do it one at a time. And we'll have Jamie do it. While you're doing it, I'm gonna go into what the VEX code is. So like I mentioned, you have both the app that you can utilize. Who here has iPad available they can utilize? Will be perfect. But then you also have the web-based VEX code aspect of it. You don't have to have a specific app, but you'll be able to access it online. These links, so you all have access to PowerPoint. Thank you specifically for the web-based to where you need to go. Everybody always has a question on what iOS you need to have specifically for the iPads. Don't remember what it is, but we should, right now. As you can see on this article, it'll tell you everything that you need here for your VEX GO. No, oh, you were smart to put on the PowerPoint. iOS 12 or greater, and then you have to have 600 megabytes of storage. If you are having issues finding that type of technology, let us know. It's not a guarantee it will find your equipment that you'll need. Let us know. We can work with you to find iPads that might be more updated, or find that Chromebooks, anything that will help you get access to the coding. The coding is fairly simple, but it's going to look exactly the same whether you're using the app or using the web-based browser. Any
Am I
questions?
reading that right, that if you're using it like on the kids' Chromebooks, it automatically saves for them, so next time they come back, their code's all right. there.
You got.
You don't have to log in or.
You got it.
Okay,
Yep.
okay, great.
But as you can see from the web base, if you don't have the iPads, the kids have to manually save their projects as they're going. So if they accidentally exit out of the web base, they go back in, everything will be gone, but on the app, you leave the app, come back in, your project will be there. Other questions?
Perfect, so it's ready to go.
All right, so for. So for you coaches, this is gonna look very familiar to you. This is what your kids utilize when they code their robots for IQ. For those of you who aren't familiar with this, they try and make it as easy as possible through like drag and drop scratch. So has anybody done, who's not a coach and doesn't know what this looks like, anybody done like our codes or something?
Yeah, I do a lot of code.org and Spiro bots.
Perfect. Yeah, so your students,
Are
yeah, so you'll be used to this, your students will be used to this. Like I said, very easy.
We're gonna confirm this today, but you can also check.
But it's very easy drag and drop. We'll play around here in a second, this game, you can tell if your brain's there. But like I said, the only thing that you really need to be able to do this is an ability to read.
You can see the fully charged. When you have all the 10 robots and then
Make it very
so
easy.
you can remember to see which ones and they want to delete. Well, those are actually.
If you're in here, and I think
Oh,
you're a little bit
yeah.
confused, I know that we're throwing a lot of information out at you. There are videos throughout the entirety of this, this is the web base. It's same on the codes, they're on the iPad base. If you go to the top where it says tutorials, it'll show you how to do pretty much anything that you want. Kind of give you some troubleshooting devices or like strategies and things are having, if your robots are having issues, but anything that your students could possibly need when they're having problems or even you when you're trying to break down what your lesson looks like are going to be up in the tutorial. I will say the overwhelming majority of issues can be solved by turning off your robot and turning it back on again. Kind of like when you're having Wi-Fi issues at home, like none of us know how to fix Wi-Fi router, but we know that you plug in, plug it back in, it's usually pretty good to go. So 95% of your issues can be solved by doing that. If you are having hardware and software issues, there are help email addresses and phone numbers that you can call on the VEX website. Jamie's going to go through that here in a little bit, but you shouldn't have any issues with your robot. It should move pretty seamlessly because it's not that complex.
Okay.
So if you select that.
So as I mentioned, it's going to be drag and drop. So the student could be pick up on this fairly quickly. You have your drive train on the side, which is going to indicate what your goals are. You've got your drive forward, turn, stop, drive, you can turn how fast, you can determine how fast you want your robot to turn.
Will we do the same
Things like
thing
that.
there?
So
And also
yeah, we're gonna
loops,
compare.
if you're familiar with those for students, as you go through some of the lessons, they'll have you do different coding strategies to make things quicker. And the way you do it is the piece of kind of snap together. And then once everybody has their brain updated and connected, we'll show you how to actually put the code onto your robot, and then we'll get you guys to put the robots on your fields.
So we can confirm this is a robot. And now I read it.
Yeah. So that's why I had the name there.
So just know that we decide to do 1 through 10 or 8 or whatever.
All right, everyone online, is it still, I think you might be hearing us. hopefully it was just us when we were talking. Can you guys, is there still like murmurs in the background? We're having this issue yesterday.
Oh, I'm not doing
It is, but in our last training, they were reading items.
Okay, so
I'm guessing.
you've got your robot and you've got your computer, but you gotta make sure that they're talking right. Best way that I describe this to students when we're in the classroom is like Bluetooth, right? If they know that they need to connect their Bluetooth headphones to their phone, and you just pull it out of the box, plug them in, you're good to go, right? So that's a very easy way to explain to them how it works. So the way that we're gonna do this is over on the right-hand side, there is an icon that is to the left of what looks like a speedometer almost. And you're gonna wanna click that. It's gonna be, I don't think you guys are gonna have anything, but what you're gonna wanna select is code base.
Anytime, and then you want to turn it on, just good practice, before you have a class period, make sure they're all updated.
Hey, George, if I mute that, hey, George, oh, I mute that owl, is that like, if you don't mind just saying that, when we were doing that for the presentation, everyone talking,
You can do a couple of things.
you're on right here.
There we go.
You could mute that or use this if you want. How are you logged in here, right? Here. So you could. Can you guys hear this?
I'm gonna mute that.
Hello? We should be good. Can you hear us online, Stephanie? It's echoing really bad. What about now? Is it better now?
It's good now.
Or is it still bad?
It's good
It's
now.
better now. Great.
Okay, well, we'll try this now. Okay, so we got the code base up. I need to refresh myself what it looks like on your end. So you again, we're connecting the robot to the code. So you got the code base. All right, perfect. Done. Awesome. So now we're gonna go up to the top where it says brain. You're gonna hit the drop down. You're gonna hit connect. Now, when I hit this, I'm gonna see every single one of the robots that you guys have. The robots are turned on. So if you had renamed your robot, find what that robot is, and then you should just need to click on it and hit pair, hit pair, and then you'll know it's connected when the green light on top of your robot starts flashing. Got flashing robot. And now your robot is paired. So we're gonna give you a couple of minutes to kind of add code to your robots, see what it looks like. And just see from a student point of view what it looks like as they try and add code. I will give you some hints that you might want your kids to figure out, but I'm gonna let you know just for the sake of time. I don't think they do this to trick you. I just don't know why it's here in the first place. So you've got things that say drive forward versus drive forward for a certain amount. If you put the drive forward in and hit start, your robot's just gonna drive forever. Because it's a robot. It's only doing what you're telling it to do. You're just telling it to drive. So you're gonna want to do drive forward for length, and you can change this to inches. And that is gonna be a better block to use as you're trying to get your robot to move forward. Same thing for the turn right or turn right for specific degrees. At a young age, the kids probably aren't gonna, maybe they won't. I don't remember what degrees were. They're probably not gonna know the best for degrees, but if you just tell them to turn right, it's gonna spin in a circle. It's just gonna continuously turn right. So you're gonna wanna do 90 degrees. If your kids don't know degrees, I think the easiest way to do it on your whiteboard or chalkboard is put 90 and then what that means. Which is the same thing as turning left. So those are my 2 hints for you as you start to play with these code blocks is drive forward is gonna drive forward forever, turn right, turn left. That's gonna just turn right and turn left forever. You're gonna wanna be very specific with your robots as you kind of play around with them. But feel free, we'll give you 10 minutes. I think once you upload the code up in this top corner, there's a button that says start. It'll start your code. Make sure you have your robot where you want it before you hit start, or it's gonna drive off the table.
We've got the floor, the tables, there's too many fields and stuff in the middle that you're welcome to use. Get a sense for the. Extra battery.
It's prompting you to say it's already started.
So you might be able to disable that at some point, but I think you will have to get the first project. And what's nice about these robots as compared to maybe how for you coaches, how VEX IQ was, is that there's a gyroscope inside the brain. So it should turn true 90 degrees. It shouldn't just guess what 90 is. It should adjust itself as it's turning. All right, and another thing that you'll notice on the code is that there is an option to drive. If you're not ready for coding yet with your students, or the lesson plan doesn't have you do coding, you can also drive your robot. Kind of works just like a video game joysticks. I think if you just hit the up on the gray, yep, there you go. You can drive your robot kind of more with a remote style. That maybe some the robotic suits drive and drive.
Let's turn on my test on the computer.
Oh yeah. Is that sure. All right. Everybody's not too long. Be in it. You already figured it out.
I sent it to our page and we want it back.
There you go.
Yeah.
It's like that's all the same things and then. It's quite a moment. We have so many students ready are all like last year.
Yeah.
So one person, so I can't do that. And so I have 4 teams to work. So obviously I a lot of people. So it's a great way to. This will be very exciting. Yes. Because then I can gently let them down and go like, but they'll be doing it in the classroom. I would have loved that because I learned the same information and turned away. It's so nice to have this consolation. Yeah, when they start. Exactly.
So it might just be that the wheels are.
Yeah. we usually do that.
Sometimes it was not figuring out how to so, but somebody times. Right. So.
Another thing, or another.
Yeah.
Right.
Especially right there. Especially here. Yeah, So
Yeah.
I don't know. That. So. Well, we practice the first one, so.
They do ours are, yeah.
But that is the only little like.
Yeah. That we typically say on. There's no sensors in it. So it's really just. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, some are, I will say it's nice about these, versus the older, I think about. If you want to. They do turn at 90, as opposed to 90 degrees. All right, everybody get the coding figured out? Everyone online getting the coding figured out? So that's a good point, Melinda. And I think some people here have realized that too. Sometimes the traction with the wheels, especially on the field, isn't always the greatest. If you did it on your floor, I think the traction would be a lot better. But if you like pick up your robot and look at the wheels, like you can kind of tell that they're a little smooth, which again ties into that slip. I don't think we have a airtight solution for that just yet. But we are in agreement with all of you that sometimes the traction isn't the greatest. Yeah, yeah. Are there Omni wheels in these? I think there are in the kits, or maybe that might be just for IQ. Just IQ.
Yeah, Go just has these 4 wheels, so each kit can be one. You only have one brain, one battery, four tires.
And this is kind of breaking the rules, but if you put the wheels in the back of your robot, the traction's a little better. I know that's not how the build is. So either listen to that or don't listen to that.
Well, you can also change the speed, you can change the velocity, so it's a really clear, it's in one of the lessons, to explain what velocity is and how they can change that number to make their robot go faster or slower, so you can imagine how much kids enjoy discovering, especially the boys, they love discovering how to make it go faster. And this, I'm not, sorry, I wasn't listening very well, Andy, so you already said this. The driving tab, it looks very confusing, and it is a little overwhelming, especially for the young kids. But it's also a really great teaching tool because it shows them what's happening kind of like behind the scenes. Like, yeah, you're driving it, but what's actually happening? The velocity is going up and the direction is changing. So if you really break this down, it is a good teaching opportunity to kind of show them what all of this means and how it works with like the degrees and the rotation, the sensors. So once you start, if you want to start using sensors, once you add a sensor, if it goes in front of a certain color, it'll show like, is that true or is that false? Is it detecting blue, false or true? Is it detecting green? And in your kit, you have the 3 colors, green, blue, and red. Sorry, more on yours. In your discs, these are all magnetic. So you have your electromagnetic sensor that you can turn it on, turn it off to pick up, release. You can use the eye sensor to say, is it red? If it's red, keep moving. If it's not red, then reverse, vice versa, all of those things. So these are there for you.
And now you're thinking like, how on earth am I supposed to code a robot that picks things up? The labs go step by step on how to do all of these things. So what I know Jamie's already mentioned this, but what's nice is I had no robot experience. Like you can figure these out fairly quickly. Your students will figure them out fairly quickly. They'll probably master it before you master it. But everything you need on the building, how to code your robot, how to make your robot do specific things, how to use the other ports, how to find colors, like that's all going to be on that VEX website. But if you ever need help finding it, clarifying things, you can always reach out to us. Any other questions on coding, driving?
On this dashboard, is there a way to see shape of the path of the robot?
Ooh, that's a good question. I don't think so.
No, but on the VR side, you can, you can do the VR version, which means does not require the equipment at all. Which we can show you. If you go back to the VEX Robotics website, you'll see the VR option. It's a great thing for like e-learning or snow days or whatever you need to assign activities for students to do at home. Because it does not require any equipment, but it has a layout of the field. It has different challenges. They code it. They do all the code blocks. They hit play. It's a virtual version instead of actual physical robot. And they have that for Go and IQ and VRC. So you can do that at any level. That isn't exactly.
Yeah, no, I'd be zero up.
Yeah.
Have the kids, if you have to do your initials, so like kind of hard to see on the
Right.
floor when you see it, so it shows where they went, what they did, where they.
Yeah, I mean, you could always do like butcher paper, attach a marker to it and draw it out that way.
Yeah.
That's just an idea. If you need to know that visual.
The only thing I want to note on this slide is once you do start adding things to your ports, like those sensors that Jamie was talking about, you will need to add those to your drivetrain, where we just added the code base. You'll have to do that as well. But that'll be down the line. You guys will be robot experts by then, so you'll get the name of it.
And as you add them, you'll have access to those blocks that will be added to the thing.
All right. Any other questions before we move on from our robots?
And I do feel like I went really fast through the lesson plans itself, so this is going to be a great time to revisit that. If you have any questions on how the lesson plans are laid out or how to access anything. I know a lot of it is just you might just need time to explore that side of it. But if there's any questions on the lesson plans, either online or in person, on how to access them or how to follow them, things like that. This would be a great time to go over anything.
Melinda said she did it in reverse and having the wheels flipped was great.
Okay.
Traction was
Reverse
better.
on purpose or an accident?
On purpose, on purpose.
Like a happy accident.
Yeah.
Right, awesome. We referenced activities earlier, but I want to go into a little bit more detail so that you can see. These are those single lessons that filter by the subject or the build. There's different things you can pull from those activities, things like the astronaut rescue. So it's a great design challenge, a great way to kick off the school year, or if you need like an end of the year activity. Where they only get certain pieces and they have to figure out how to rescue the astronaut. So it's a design challenge if you're looking for something like that. There's a math lesson on practicing multiplication facts by using the wind up card. So it's like a rubber band card. So they wind it, they release it, and they practice their multiplication facts on the multiplication road. The scavenger hunt is also a great way at the very beginning of the school year where they have to find specific pieces from their kit to get familiar with all of the parts. So that's a great activity. There's some that have literacy components where they take the pieces and they're comparing them and they're using adjectives to compare the different pieces. There's really great ways to incorporate lots of other standards. And then the competition side is it's 100% optional. We don't necessarily say it's not required by any means. If you get to the point, I know a lot of you are already IQ coaches and you might be looking for ways to go to more competitive levels. There is no online registration, not like it is with after school robotics where you register your team and you compete. This is a great thing to use for classrooms, maybe that you want to have competitions against each other. So it could be all fifth grade classrooms. If maybe you're going to compete against other fifth grade classrooms in another school within your district. So maybe it's going to be a STEM night, maybe it's going to be a showcase where your students come together and show their parents and community partners what they're doing with VEX GO. So it's just a really great option that you can add to it. It does cost it's $300, $299 to get the competition kit. It has 4 different themes. So it has the ocean, science exploration, the city technology rebuild, the village engineering construction, and the Mars math expedition. So it's the one field and then the 4 themes that you can swap out. We have districts that are using this as a way to have a grade level, like across the district. All 4th graders, for example, are going to do the competition. And then they're gonna have a cumulative at the end of the school year, come together and compete with the challenge. So it's all laid out just like in the STEM, just like with the STEM lab. So if you're in the STEM lab units and you see something that says like Mars Math Expedition, it's referring to the competition side of things, where it has suggested scoring. It will have a leaderboard where they can put in scores, kind of like a bracket situation where you could do in your classroom. So it's just an idea of something that you can use as an end of the year celebration or a showcase for your community. There are links there for you if you ever want to check that out, but it's played on a 3x6 field. And each theme has a different configuration. Here are a list of resources for you. Some of these things we've already visited, but I wanted them to all be in one place for you so you can quickly access them. Every one of these are hyperlinked, starting with the build instructions. So this is going to be that one stop to get every single build instruction. There are all those PDFs that you can download or you can print. You can share that link out with your students on your LMS, whether it's Canvas, Google Classroom. So if you want to make it super easy, tell your kids, click there, build that kind of thing. That's all there for you. The VEX Robotics store. So if you need to purchase additional equipment, if you need more pieces, if you want to add more kits, if you want to get the competition, all of that is in the VEX Robotics store, which we don't get anything back from them. So we just choose to use VEX as our robotics platform. We don't get any kind of benefit from it. We don't feel like I don't feel like a sales. We don't get anything, nothing benefits us in that area, but there's a direct link to the STEM lab. So those are all of that's your teacher portal that has all of your lessons. There's a direct link to VEX Code. So that's the coding platform that we were just on. There's a direct link there. The TPFOI robot resource page. So that's our website. It has all the robot resources for in classroom and after school. So we will continue to build that out. You'll see us add things there, but it'll have the recording of this training will be there. It will have the link to this presentation. So if you need to get back to the links, all kinds of resources that can help you on your robotics journey. And then we have our Go Facebook group. It's a small group because, like I mentioned, we did seven pilot teachers, 52 last year. We have 50 this year. So we're still building that out. But if you are familiar with the IQ or VRC Facebook Coaches Corner, we started a VEX Go Facebook group that's specific to only Indiana Go educators, so that you can go on there and ask for help when you need it. If you want to ask suggestions about storage, if you want to ask, has anybody done the lesson on the save the astronaut? How did it go? What should I know? Does this lesson really need this, or could I go without it? So if you ever want to ask specific questions about lessons or activities or equipment, that's a great place to talk to and connect with other VEX Go educators in Indiana only. There's the knowledge base, which is just troubleshooting tips and product specific information through VEX. The Project Lead the Way and VEX Go alignment guide that I promised you. Those of you that also teach Project Lead the Way. This has every activity. It starts with the VEX Go activities, and then over on the right side, you'll see the launch modules that support that activity. So it could be that you could use them together, or you could use one in place of the other, but it goes through every single VEX Go activity and shows you where you can find something similar in Project Lead the Way. If there is nothing in the Project Lead the Way column, that means it is only specific to Go, and Project Lead the Way does not have anything like that compares to that activity. So it might be a great way when you're teaching something to say, do I want to use Go or Project Lead the Way, or a combination of both? So that is there for you to use. And you can always make a copy of it, make it your own if you want to make edits to it. And then educator certification. So you are 100% qualified to teach VEX Go after completing this training, but there's also a VEX certified course that you can take as well. I will tell you that it's going to be very similar to all the things that you learned today. But if you feel like you need that, like maybe you just need to sit down independently and go through all of it, you can absolutely do that, especially if you like digital badges. If that fills your bucket, then I would highly recommend the VEX Go digital certification that you can add as well. So it will have like little quizzes throughout, and now that you'll be able to apply right there. It's free. Yeah, all of the VEX certifications are free, so you can get certified in every single one, like 1, 2, 3, Go, IQ, V5. You can get certified in all of those. I do them every year because I like a refresher. So I usually like to do all of that. Also, like if you're an event partner, there's a certification. If you want to be a judge at an event, there's a certification. So all of those are completely free. You don't have to pay for it. Yeah. And for you guys at the district level, if you wanted to require it, like especially if someone was doing training, you wanted to say like watch the video and complete this, like you could do that. I would say 2 to 3 hours probably to get it done. Maybe less if you already have some background information.
So you gotta get certificates for.
Yeah, you should at the end. I want to say tell how many hours are on that. You get that certification at the end. I'm pretty sure it does say how many hours. And you'll also get one for the training today.
Oh, great.
You'll get that as well, and we'll add a little bit of time. So you'll get that from us. So after training, you will get an email from us that have links to this presentation, to the recording, so that you can go back to it and listen if you need to. You'll also have your PGP certificate, and also lastly, links to surveys. So if you are a grant recipient, If you are a VEX GO grant recipient, you are required to complete at least one unit. So if you saw, we went through them. Some of the units are only 2 classes, so it's very minimal. We just need you to complete at least one unit. We don't want equipment just sitting around. If you find that it's not a good fit for you and you don't think that it's gonna work out for you, that's okay. Just let us know. We will gladly take the equipment back and then we'll give it to somebody else. It's not gonna hurt our feelings. We just wanna make sure it's being utilized and it's not just sitting around collecting dust. So we do want you to complete at least one unit, and then we want you to complete a pre and post survey so that we can see how your students are liking it, how you are liking it. It also helps us as we're a nonprofit, so we're trying to secure grant dollars, and that data helps us on grant reports and grant applications to be able to show that what we're doing is making an impact on students and teachers. So the pre and post surveys, the link to the teacher survey is right there, and we're going to give you a $50 Amazon gift card for completing all of your pre-surveys. So the one for you, and then also your classroom. So you're going to choose one classroom. If you are a STEM teacher and you see all students, just choose one classroom. We don't need you to do all of them. Choose one of them. There's a K-12 link and then a 3 through 6. It has similar questions, but depending on age level, they're worded a little bit differently. And then once all of your pre-surveys are turned in, you'll get a $50 Amazon gift card. Then you're going to get another email from us at the end of the school year saying, remember, make sure you do your post surveys. We'll have the links, and then we'll give you another $50 Amazon gift card for filling those out. So we really need that data to help move our mission forward. And as someone that's receiving free equipment, we just expect that you help us out in that capacity. Any questions on grant requirements? And you might want to stop by sometime if you welcome us in. We love to stop by and see, like, obviously if you're in Perry, Pike, IPS or Lawrence, you'll see Andy probably pretty consistently. But anyone else, if you would want us to come visit, we can help, or we can just hang out. We just love, we don't get to see kids as much, so we just love to be in the classroom as possible. So if you ever just want us to come, see what's going on. I get emails from teachers with just the pictures or videos saying like, we did this activity and it went so well, everybody loved it. That really drives us. So keep us included and keep us on your journey so that we can support you however you need us to. We are here to help you and you're not bothering us. So please, please, please make sure you can call us, text us, email us. We want to help you in whatever it takes to keep you on this journey because we know for a fact that it impacts students. So whatever we need to do to help you that, we're here for you. Any questions? Did we really finish early?
Yeah, it's a record.
I email them a lot.
Yeah. I think that's the first time I've ever finished early.
Yeah, that was impressive.
I was talking really fast. I hope you were listening fast. Okay. If you borrowed anything from us in person, will you just make sure you return? It should have our name on it. It should have TPF roughing. Or if you have our kits, you can leave them right there and we'll get them.
Are there specific dates that we want the surveys done by?
We like to have them done by the end of August if possible, but we understand August is busy. So we are usually pretty flexible when it comes to surveys, but we're going to shoot for end of August.
You said, send this to us.
Yeah, we're going to email today that has all of this. So you know, the pre-survey, they don't have to have any, when you do the pre-survey, the students don't have to have any exposure to VEX GO at all. It actually is better if they don't, because then you get to see the process, like they're, you know, how they change before and after they use them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Gotcha. Oh, really? Oh, wow. Great. Good, good.
We sure did.
Yeah, very cool. One, no. He said that he